All right, Sam, recording's going.
Excellent. Thank you, Alec. So, per our prior discussion, I'm pasting three links in the chat window, and that's primarily for Alec to be able to display those videos when we get to them, merely because we're having audio issues transmitting from here to Teams. But in any case, let's go ahead and get started. And I'll share my screen. Oh no, did I close out of Teams? No, there we go.
We still
It's
got
only
you.
been 5 years since the pandemic. You'd think I'd have a good handle on using Teams by now, but
We none of us have any remote background experience.
all right. So, can you see my screen okay?
Yes.
We
Yep.
see your
All right.
desktop, I think, maybe.
Yep. All right.
Hello. Yep.
There. Yep. That's your presentation.
Okay. So, sorry for the slight technical difficulties there. Again, welcome everyone. Thank you for having me. My name is Sam Nasser, as Alex said, and the title of today's presentation is The Good, Bad, and Ugly of AI. A little bit about me. You can find me on Twitter or X at Sam Nasser. I've been a software developer since 1995, closing in on close to 3 decades now. I'm a senior software engineer as well as a technical trainer for NIS Technologies, and I've been certified with a few certifications from Microsoft. And one of my biggest accomplishments and things that I love to do is run the Cleveland C Sharp user group as well as the Azure Cleveland user group. I'm also a technical author, and I'm a 7-time Microsoft MVP. A shameless plug regarding the Cleveland user groups. We meet every month. The meetings are free of charge and open to the public. And as I mentioned before, there are two groups that I run in the Cleveland area, the Azure Cleveland user group, as well as the Cleveland C Sharp group. And there are the meetup links for those. So let's dive into today's presentation. And I wanted to set the expectations right from the get-go. So the whole point of this presentation is to raise awareness regarding various topics in AI and whether they're good, bad, or ugly, and how they can be beneficial or could be problematic. Um, so we're going to talk about all three, and we're going to progress in that specific order. There will be no code demos. It's all going to be a discussion, basically. And because it's going to be discussion based, participation is highly encouraged. So I invite you from the get go. Feel free to jump in with any questions or comments. Don't necessarily wait for me to stop and ask for any questions, but let's leave it as an open floor for you to jump in at any time. All right. So let's start with the good. This video clip, which is the first clip that I shared in the chat window, is really what caused me to gravitate towards AI and really embrace it and want to study more and work more in it. So this is from the Microsoft Build Conference in 2016, and Satya Nadella will be introducing Saqib Sheikh, who is a visually impaired engineer for Microsoft, and I'll let him do the discussion, and you'll see why I like this so much.
Thank you so much, Cornelia. So hopefully you get a feel for the richness of these intelligence services that you can use. And now it is up to each of us as developers to imagine what's possible. Imagine what Boeing can do to the business applications in the aerospace industry, what Case Western Reserve can do to medical education, what NASA can do for space exploration, what a fast food restaurant can do for order taking through a drive-through using Chris, what a news organization can do to be able to interpret all text, all images, all videos on a social media stream in real time. And one developer truly inspired me this last year, very close to home for us at Microsoft. I want to see what he dreamt of. Roll the video.
I'm Saqib Sheikh. I lost my sight when I was 7, and shortly after that I went to a school for the blind. And that's where I was introduced to talking computers, and that really opened up a whole new world of opportunities. I joined Microsoft 10 years ago as a software engineer. I love making things which improve people's lives. And one of the things I've always dreamt of since I was at university was this idea of something that could tell you at any moment what's going on around you.
I think it's a man jumping in the air doing a trick on a skateboard.
I teamed up with like-minded engineers to make an app which lets you know who and what is around you. It's based on top of the Microsoft Intelligence APIs, which makes it so much easier to make this kind of thing. The app runs on smartphones, but also on the Pivot Head smart glasses. When you're talking to a bigger group, sometimes you can talk and there's no response, and you think, is everyone listening really well, or are they half asleep? And you never know.
I see two faces, 40-year-old man with a beard looking surprised, 20-year-old woman looking happy.
The app can describe the general age and gender of the people around me and what their emotions are, which is incredible. One of the things that's most useful about the app is the ability to read out text.
Hello, good afternoon. Here's your menu.
Great, thank you. I can use the app on my phone to take a picture of the menu, and it's going to guide me on how to take that correct photo.
Move camera to the bottom right and away from the document.
And then it'll recognize the text. Read me the headings.
I see appetizers, salads, paninis, pizzas, pastas.
Years ago, this was science fiction. I never thought it would be something that you could actually do. But artificial intelligence is improving at an ever faster rate. And I'm really excited to see where we can take this. As engineers, we're always standing on the shoulders of giants, building on top of what went before. And in this case, we've taken years of research from Microsoft Research to pull this off.
I think it's a young girl throwing an orange frisbee in the park.
For me, it's about taking that far-off dream and building it one step at a time. I think this is just the beginning.
For me, it's such a privilege to have a chance to share the stage with Saqib. And, you know, Saqib took his passion, his empathy, and is going to change the world. And to me, that's what Build is all about. He's here, in fact, at Build to network, inspire other developers, learn himself on how to take his applications and make them better. But more importantly, he's also here to teach. He's got a couple of sessions that he's going to do as well. And to me, that's what makes these developer conferences magical. It is about being able to take our passions, our empathy, and go after the opportunities that we see, go after the dreams that we have. And what Saqib has done has been a real inspiration for me. And we as developers have this tremendous opportunity and a tremendous responsibility. Because not only do we get to dream of the future, we get to build the future. I can't wait to see what you dream up and what you build. Thank you so very, very much. Have a fantastic build. Thank you.
All right, so
Can't fit in those jeans. Be careful.
so as Brian had mentioned, it is a pretty amazing video, and I completely agree. The minute I saw that video back in the day, I immediately was drawn to AI and wanting to learn more about it. And ever since, Microsoft has been introducing more and more features, and looking at those in a little bit closer.
Can you reshare your screen, Sam?
Sure. So where have things progressed ever since? We now have GitHub Copilot that was introduced back in 2021. And what this allows us to do is essentially be able to do a variety of things that are code related. It's available as a free tool for both Visual Studio and VS Code. And as many of you know, it helps us writing code, debugging, and write unit tests, as well as explain different portions of code. So GitHub Copilot has become very popular very quickly. And then the term Copilot has essentially infiltrated all the products in the Microsoft lineup. We're not just talking from developer products like VS and VS Code, but now it migrated into business applications such as Office with Microsoft Word and Excel. It also went into operating systems where we now have Copilot built into the OS, as well as some laptops already come Copilot enabled with an additional processor. And then building on top of that, we now have Copilot as a standalone website, much like Bing and Google. It's a site where we can actually go and do research. But the advantage is with Google, you put in certain search terms, and then you wait for all that information dump to come back, and then it is your job to actually sift through it. Copilot is a different story in the sense that I can now interact with it using natural language. And as you see in the picture over on the left, I simply asked the question, what are the most colorful deer-resistant plants to use in Zone 6 where I live? And immediately it brought back a list of plants as opposed to me having to sift through a dump of information. And then you see over on the right-hand side, I had reached out to Twitter and I'd asked a few friends, I said, I'm putting together a presentation on AI and the advantages thereof. And a friend of mine replied back, Mark, as you see, and he says, I have a neighbor here that gave a brief intro to ChatGPT, went home and had it redesign his 200-foot backyard garden. It gave him the best plans for the area and the soil, what to place near what, and listed all the plants he never heard of before. So it was very advantageous. And ChatGPT, as you know, is built on OpenAI the same way that Copilot is. The advantage here is I am no longer entering in search terms where I have to pick and choose what I'm going to say and then get a bunch of information back at me and then having to find out what's applicable and what's not. But rather it is more of a Q&A, a dialogue, similar as if I was talking to a friend of mine and getting a straightforward answer. Continuing to build on top of that, some additional advantages of AI that had brought to the table is that we have a growing role of AI in humanitarian crisis management, meaning we're able to predict weather changes, seismic activity, and be able to warn people ahead of time for evacuation. In addition, this could be used for conflict zones, predicting analytics where outbreaks of violence or riots could erupt. And this is done by examining social media activity, economic trends, and migration patterns as well. So what happens is with AI, it's able to analyze vast amounts of data at scale. It's able to recognize patterns in the data, as well as real-time monitoring. So all those built together provide some additional capabilities that are essentially aiding humanity in avoiding dangers, whether it be natural disasters or some violent activities that may be happening. Now, let's go to our second video. Pardon me. And let me just do a brief introduction of this video. So this gentleman is a patient undergoing a experimental trial in the UK, and he has Parkinson's disease. For those of you not familiar with that disease, basically it causes a lot of trembling in the arms, and not only that, but it causes a lot of muscular pain. My mother-in-law has it, and yeah, I feel for her because essentially her body feels like she just finished a marathon, and it's aching all over, and it's that constant feeling of aches that is nonstop. So let's go ahead and roll this video and see how it could be used to help counteract Parkinson's.
With your stimulators off, I just want to mark what your tremor is like. Okay, you happy for that to go ahead?
Yeah.
Right then, with your right hand, if you possibly can, touch your nose, touch my finger. Okay, and the real test. Do you think you could pick that up for me? Right, okay. Should we switch it on? Okay.
Ah,
All right.
ah. That's it.
Does that feel better?
That feels good.
Should we try and do these assessments again? With this hand only, and with your right index finger, touch your nose, touch my finger.
Ah, that's great.
Okay, you're all right. Good. All right. Yeah. Can you try picking that cup up for me with your right hand? Well done.
That's incredible. That is amazing. That is an amazing change. For him to even just drink is great.
That deserves a round of applause.
When I started.
So, as you had seen, basically, once they turned on the device, it counteracted the Parkinson's. And think of it this way: with the trembles, basically, his fingers were going back and forth, or his hand rather, and so it was able to pick up the pattern of the constant back and forth, and then it just counteracted that in the same way that noise-canceling earphones work, where they produce a different wave to counteract the noise coming through, and then the net result is a more stable hand gesture. So I also thought that this was very moving, where again, AI is used for humanitarian use, and we can see some great advantages coming from it. Moving right along. Pardon the technical difficulties. All right, so now let's explore the bad. And let's also my favorite quotes of all time. So this is Henry Ford, where he's saying, if I had asked people what they wanted, they would have said faster horses. Obviously, he's alluding to the time where he first invented the automobile, but of course, with anything technologically advanced, there's always pushback. So with regards to AI, why is this a bad thing? Or why would this be an issue? I would love to hear from you, your comments, and if you don't know, feel free to jump in and say you don't know.
I think we've seen like deep faked celebrities out there before, like making people look like and making it sound like they say something that they maybe didn't.
True, we have, and we're certainly going to touch on that. But the reason I think that AI is an issue currently is because some people are still of that mindset with the faster horses, meaning AI is not going to tell me what to do or going to tell my programming staff what to do. Rather, we're going to do it the old-fashioned way and stick with coding and textbook examples and stick with that. So for starters, it is a change of mindset for not so much for developers, because developers tend to gravitate towards anything that is new and advanced, but more of to the business owners and leadership, they're less likely to gravitate towards something that's new like that. They want to wait until it's and see that it matures well. So this is the first under the bad category. It's the change of mindset that we have to undergo. Moving right along. We already talked about Copilot and its advantage where it's just natural language processing. But the one thing to keep in mind, as stated here in red, Copilot always makes the disclaimer that it may make mistakes. By interacting with Copilot, you agree to the terms of use and the privacy statement. So as far as privacy, any data that you enter into Copilot or use it in any of the AI features for machine learning with Microsoft, your data stays as your data. However, the key thing to note here is that Copilot may make mistakes. Now, why is this a problem? Excuse me. Why is this a problem? Because a lot of times as developers, we've gotten into the habit of cut and paste, right? I'm searching for a problem in Stack Overflow. I scroll down where I see the green check mark, copy, go to my code, paste, done, see if it runs, and I'm off and running. The problem with that is, first of all, as it states, Copilot may make mistakes. So I could be pasting errors into my code, but not just compile time or runtime errors, but rather it could be security vulnerabilities as well. In addition, a lot of organizations rely on coding interviews. So they want to see that this new hire will be able to do the job, and so they present them with a problem, and now they can very easily go into Copilot, enter in the question, retrieve the code back, and then present it to the interviewer. So this would unfortunately increase the number of fake interviews. In addition, another problem that I encountered is especially working with AI and ML as new machine models are being introduced, as new AI models are being introduced. I want to be able to access them with code in Azure AI Foundry. So I put in a statement like that asking to access a DeepSeek model, and not specifically DeepSeek, but other things within the AI Foundry, and the code that I got back just wasn't cutting it. So there is a problem where with the new releases of models or new code enhancements, accessing those or asking Copilot to write code examples for that might not be accurate at all because, again, it's new code and the model has not had time to learn about the new code that was recently introduced. And as Alec had mentioned, fake images. So as we see here, images that look very realistic, pardon me. However, in reality, they are fake. So we see Prince William and Prince Henry reunited in tears. That's a fake image. We see the Pope standing in front of thousands of people. And again, that was also fake. So this was supposedly in Lisbon, but it never really took place. And then, of course, Emmanuel Macron amid the French riots, which again did not take place. So looking at this, something like this looks very real, and in reality, it's fake. So why is that a problem? Well, when you look at it, do you think immediately to yourself, this is a novelty, it's kind of cool, or do you think that this could be a problem overall? Pardon me. Could this be something that'll go viral and basically amplify something that didn't exist? Or are people immediately going to recognize it as a fake image? Would love to hear your feedback.
I've definitely seen my grandma I always joke around with is like the boomer on Facebook. And it's scary to see the progression of AI because she still shares like they look like clay almost, like the very earlier models, and be like, wow, these flowers look so great. Or it'll be like a sad person and be like, bet nobody wishes me a happy birthday, and they have like 15 toes or something crazy. It's like
Yeah, exactly.
very obviously fake. But then
Oh,
I
yeah.
see, the progression of like images like this, and like there's already a part of the population that if it's on the internet, it's fact. And then I think
Yeah.
it just keeps progressing now that it's getting harder and harder to spot the differences. AI used to be if you looked at the hands and there was 5 fingers, you probably were okay because AI could just not do hands, but even that's getting better.
Hmm. Yeah, very true.
My name's Tom out of Denver here. Can you guys hear
Hi,
me?
Tom. Yes, sir. Go ahead.
So fake images, I've been reading. I have AI engineering with Microsoft and MCT and Azure, whatever. I'm a proficient. I'm not an expert. Anyway, I've been coding about 50 years, 40 years. First line of code is in 79, but I'm just a kid. Anyway, getting back to it. My biggest concern is the adoption of AI agents. Because here we are, we're building these automated routines, and we don't know if we can count on the data. You can't even sell that to a business yet. I mean, they're all touting everything's moving AI agents, and that's one segue. The other one is the movie stars in California, wherever, I don't know. They're having to sign agreements that if they want to make their 20 or 30, whatever they make on that first movie, that they're allowing their digital to be advertised, all their voices or something to be cloned. And then now they're getting to the point where, some of course are saying no, but if you're young and want to, become a star or something, you have to agree to the terms of the future that AI could replace you on the second version of the movie or the third version of the movie. That's all. I'll stop there.
Yeah, that's it's a very good point, which actually is a great segue to the next slide. I mean, it's certainly a great talking point, and I do want to address that a little bit further. But I also wanted to share the following video clip. And Alec, if you'd go ahead and cue up the third video.
Let's play a game. I'm going to show you 2 videos. One is real, one is altered by AI. Can you spot the deep fake? Prime Minister Justin Trudeau recommended one of these books. Which one?
The book that I got excited about reading through. It's called This Can't Be Happening in MacDonald Hall. It's called How the Prime Minister Stole Freedom.
Yeah, it was the last one. The Prime Minister never said that. Okay, round 2.
If you can see, I hope to finish this talk show one day.
Will the fake Morgan Freeman please stand up?
I'm not Morgan Freeman, and what you see is not real.
How about these videos of Florida Governor Ron DeSantis? Did the presidential hopeful say this?
I'm the only one that could possibly compete with Donald Trump.
Or this?
I took some very bad advice. I did some very bad things.
The last one is fake, made to make you think that DeSantis was dropping out of the race. Look at the mouth, out of sync to the voice.
I never should have challenged President Trump.
One giveaway to a deepfake. For now. From Hollywood to Washington to Ottawa, deepfakes are confusing reality.
With AI, fraudsters can take 3-second recording of your voice. I've watched one of me on a couple of times. I said, when the hell did I say that?
Spend enough time scrolling, like me, you start questioning everything on your screen. How do I know that you're not a deepfake?
Ah, that's the right question, isn't it?
Hani Farid specializes in digital forensics out of the University of California, Berkeley.
If you're trying to create a 10-second hot mic of the prime minister saying something inappropriate, that'll take me 2 minutes to do. And very little money and very little effort and very little skill.
Okay, so a video of a politician swearing or dancing won't set off national security alarms.
President Trump is a total and complete dip.
But as AI technology gets better and more believable, Farid worries about populations primed for manipulation.
What concerns me a great deal in this country in particular is how partisan we are. And when you have that kind of deep partisanship, that outright hatred of the other side, not just disagreement, the disinformation campaigns are much more effective because they will take hold because everybody's already there.
Here's something you might have seen before on your social media feed.
On artificial intelligence.
A deepfake of the National's Ian Hannah-Mansing that seems to be selling cryptocurrency.
More than $765
It's a scam. He never recorded that. It's made with AI. Okay, but what if during the next election you see multiple videos that look and sound like a journalist you trust telling you the date of the election has changed? Would you believe it? I think that's really scary when you think
They
about
release that, 12 hours before election day, go supernova viral. It doesn't matter if you correct the record 12 hours later. The damage has been done.
it's that threat to democracy that rattles this conservative MP.
Politicians have large digital footprints. You know, I have over a decade worth of speeches that are on the internet, writing, videos. It'd be very easy for somebody to put together a deepfake video of me.
Worried that Parliament isn't moving fast enough, Michelle Rempel-Garner helped set up a nonpartisan working group to tackle AI.
We haven't even dealt with telephone scams as a country, right? Like, we really haven't dealt with like beta version phone scams. And now here we are with very sophisticated technology that anybody can access and come up with very realistic videos, like indecipher or indistinguishable between the real thing and what's been produced. The question really is Canada ready to deal with this? Like, these are not conversations that are happening front and center in Parliament right now, and that is concerning.
Not far from Parliament, the worst case scenario is top of mind. Canada's cyber spies are already sounding the alarm about our first AI election. Carolyn Xavier is the chief of the Communications Security Establishment, or CSE, the sister agency to CSIS.
This is what we fear, is potentially that there could be a foreign interference so grave that then the electoral results are brought into question.
Simply put, is Canada ready for its deepfake election?
There's lots of work we continue to need to do with regards to education and, citizenship literacy. But do I think we, CSC, is ready? The Cyber Center, absolutely, I think we're ready, because this is what we train for. This is what we get ready for. This is why we develop our people. We anticipate the worst. I'm hoping it won't happen, but we're ready.
Ready to help allies like the U.S. with their election this year. When it comes to our election, CSE has the power to knock dangerous content offline. But even then, it doesn't have a magic bullet to kill deepfakes.
The reality of it is, yes, it would be great to say that there's this one tool that's going to help us decipher the deepfake. We're not there yet, and I don't know that that's the focus we should have. Our focus should truly be in creating professional skepticism of the stories that are out there so that we can have critical thinking happening every time we're looking at the news or we're looking at the information that is at our disposal.
So how do you do that? Remember the game I played with you earlier? Okay, so let's play this game. Well, Scott DeYoung created a board game to fight disinformation. I'm the good person, and you're trying to spread conspiracy theories.
I am the conspiracy theorist.
Okay. His research at Montreal's Concordia University is teaching people how online echo chambers and conspiracy theories work. He says deepfakes are designed to get us when we're most vulnerable.
When we're scrolling on social media, we don't want to have our brains on. We're tired. We're not actually engaging with content. We're just kind of mindlessly scrolling, maybe laughing and sharing something with our friends. And that's not a time when we're going to do those steps of like, okay, we're going to stop, we're going to pause, we're going to reflect.
Can we actually teach people not to fall for fake content?
I would love to say yes. Like, we can teach people the skills to recognize when content is misleading. My actual advice for people during these kind of election times is to try to watch things live, because it's a lot harder to see the deep fakes or the false content when you're watching the live version.
With the year of elections upon us, including maybe Canada's, experts say the best strategy is to act now. Or come election day, we might all lose.
All right. So what do you think of that video, Tom?
Interesting. It is. After a lot of analysis, because I've been coding a lot with the AI, you can find the fakes in the on the side. I got my camera off. On the side of the eyes, for some reason, it can do a really good job. But what you'll find is they'll usually pull the wrinkles. There's no wrinkles, or they're over exaggerated along the side. I've done a lot of analysis on using Microsoft APIs and stuff. And that's where it sticks out. But I mean, that's today. Tomorrow it's going to be fixed. You know what I mean? It's just
exactly.
Speed of light. The trajectory is this way. We're not talking this. Go ahead, sir.
Right. But I thought your question was a great segue to that video, and obviously this definitely falls under the bad category of all the various things that we could see. Now, let's take it up a notch and move on to the next category, which is the ugly. So, moving right along, what are some ugly concerns that we have about AI? Well, first of all, bias and discrimination. So this is where AI systems can unintentionally perpetuate biases present in the training data. Now, this boils down to the engineers and the developers building the AI models because, like the old adage, garbage in, garbage out, right? As soon as computers were invented, so was that phrase, and it still applies today. So if you train a model on bad data or biased data, it's going to give you biased results. But it's still a concern that we have to address both as developers as well as the business leadership. In addition, privacy concerns, where AI often requires vast amounts of data, and if that data is not scrubbed correctly, meaning that we remove personal identifiable information, such as address, age, social security number, all these things, they can be eventually pulled into the model and could divulge our privacy. Another one that seems to scare a lot of people is job displacement, where automation and AI can replace the human jobs in certain industries. And of course, this is going to lead to economic challenges and inequality. We can touch on that later, but me personally, I feel that as technology improves over time, regardless whatever technology is, whether it be the automobile or AI or any other technology, I think as one job sector is eliminated, so is another job sector is created. So we've all seen or some of us, I should say, that have been around since the 90s, we've seen the e-commerce boom, where a lot of stores went online and they essentially closed the brick and mortar and they thrived online. And a lot of people were saying, well, you're eliminating jobs. True, but then what also did we give a rise to? Amazon drivers and other delivery drivers, door dashers, pardon me. So as one sector of the industry dies, another is born. So I just see a difference in movement as far as the job market goes. But we can discuss that in the discussion portion of the presentation. But then a bigger concern is misinformation. As we had seen with the fake videos, essentially what that could do is spread misinformation. And especially when it comes to politics, which seems to be the third rail and a very hot potato. Every year or every election year, I am grateful when November has passed because people are just constantly at each other with Republican versus Democrat, conservative versus liberal. And then on top of that, you include AI and fake videos where people tend to produce fake videos of things that were never said, things that never happened, and they want to perpetuate these lies. And the same lies with weaponization, where in some cases we can exploit it for our own purposes. Meaning, if I am a diehard liberal, I can now create a video of Trump doing something that is criminal and then post that on the internet and tell everyone, see, look, your candidate is so bad, right? Pardon me. Another ugly concern is lack of transparency. So we train these models, but essentially, a lot of times we take these AI models, we don't know exactly how they're built. We just know that they perform in a certain accurate function. They are more prone towards text generation or completion versus image generation. But we take them as a black box and then we train them and then use them afterwards. So it's that lack of transparency where we don't know what that middle tier is performing that kind of leaves us at a disadvantage. And last but not least, dependence and dehumanization. So we've all made phone calls where, we've talked to a computerized system where we press 1 for English, 2 for Spanish, but then it continues down the rabbit hole with the various, please give me your social security number, please give me your address, and we progress down that way. But even worse, it's not just talking to a chatbot. What's even worse is if I use something like Copilot, where I'm just blindly cut and pasting, right? And pasting things into my code. Another one that I heard about on that is the reliance of the GPS systems. With me, even if I'm going to a familiar location and I know the way there, I still put the address in because it gives me reroutes in case there's an accident or a traffic backup. So I am fully relying on that. I am no longer focusing on, I need to make a left at this next light, but rather I'm sitting there listening to my GPS and I become a mindless drone essentially. And not just with me, but millions of other people. So that's another ugly side of AI. Pardon me while I pause for a second. Sorry about that. Now, what's even uglier than that is in 2018, the Venezuelan president Nicolas Maduro was giving a speech, and you'll see that his entourage surrounding him, all of a sudden they start looking up. And what had happened is two drones started flying towards the president, and they were carrying explosives. And then when they got close to him, they detonated. Thankfully, his security detail was able to protect him and guard him. Unfortunately, others were injured in the process. And then you see the crowd scattering once they saw the detonation happening. So if you think about what's needed for something like this, a drone, we already have that widely available today. Explosives, sadly, those can be built by a lot of homemade materials. Facial recognition, which again is available today, where we can utilize it and set up a model to do facial recognition to recognize Nicolas Maduro from Brad Pitt or Donald Trump. And then, excuse me, a cell signal that will connect us to the cloud. So essentially, I could have a drone with a Raspberry Pi on it, connected to the cloud, and then doing facial recognition and essentially piloting the drone or having it be autonomous where it actually flies on its own until it identifies that president in the crowd, goes towards him, and then detonates. So this is probably the ugliest of AI, where now we're using it for assassinations. I shouldn't say we, but some people are using it for assassinations. I apologize, I'm getting over a cold, but in any case, so I wanted to move on. And after you've seen the good, the bad, and the ugly of AI, I'd like you to come off of mute, and I would love to hear your feedback, preferably verbally. But let me ask you, after what you've seen, do you see AI as a friend or a foe? Let's start with Alec.
Yeah, I like to see the positive in it. I think the productivity gains and the speed in which you can do stuff is definitely going to shift roles. Like I don't think the engineer that hides in their basement and doesn't talk to people, I see that role getting more product centric and talking more business outcomes because it's going to be, I think you're going to be the validator of the code the AI writes instead of maybe slinging code all day every day. And then that your job function then changes to how do you help the business move forward instead of just, did I write 12 for loops today because that's what the PO put on my order sheet to do today. So I would say friend for the most part. There are some scary use cases out there. I've even seen people use the scary use cases as products though. So like you talked about deep fakes. HeyGen is I think the one of the leaders, or Microsoft also has a service for this, not quite to the same extent, but where you can record a video and it'll dub over your voice and mouth with like a different language, and that's a feature, not a foe. So depending on the use case, what we're talking about is scary might be something that's intentional in what you want, right? Like maybe I want the CEO of my company being able to talk to any language in any workforce because maybe we're a globally distributed company. Maybe that is not something you want because you don't want somebody to run into the CEO and talk to them in Mandarin and they have no idea what the person's saying. I don't know. But yeah, I think barring the AI drones, I don't think depending on how you look at it or your use case, could probably be seen in a positive way, or you could use it for good, I should say.
Okay, pretty good. Derek, did you want to chime in?
Yeah, I think any technology can potentially be used for bad, depending on who's using it. I think for the most part that AI has a lot of great uses for it. The other concern, though, I have is uh, how much it's going to change how businesses operate and the impact on human resources that will be displaced or changed because of the way their jobs are molded with AI.
Right.
I look at like a developer standpoint. I mean, if I was a junior developer starting out, I have to question what my future is if I'm going to be basically replaced with AI in the future.
Right. So one thing I love about today's presentation with this group is that you all have given me great segues into the next slide or the next question. And so Derek brings up a very good point. Will AI replace software developers? We now have Copilot, where, as you had seen earlier, I entered in a statement of what I want my code sample to be, and then it gives me the code back where I can now paste it into Visual Studio. Or better yet, just use GitHub Copilot, and I don't have to go outside into a web browser. I can do everything through Visual Studio. So will that replace software developers? Tom, you have your hand up?
Yeah, well, great question. I think, this is a tool that augments developers' capabilities, makes them more productive. At the end of the day, the paradigm for Pilot is that, check and validate what it produces, right? So I think we're still ways away from that. Then in one area, like a software development with AI would be where I see, humans having to always keep an eye out for all the things, making sure that the models are generating things within acceptable parameters, right? And that's been a huge area of investment, for Microsoft and others to make sure that those base models are helping people and not harming them. That's my 2 cents. Thank you, Sam.
Very well said. Yeah. Tom Kelly, did you want to chime in?
So basically, after really pushing it for the last couple of years, yes, like I agree with Tom that it's a few days away, but overnight it's here. Unfortunately, they're estimating right now 300 million people planet-wide are going to lose their jobs. It's actually going to be a billion. I mean, it's going to be a lot higher. I mean, when you look at Optimus from Tesla, and it'll just take place all the factories, and they already started talking about universal incomes. So, but back to the software, developer focus. As we grow through our years, if we want to continue to do this for a living or even if for our own pastime, we have to constantly study and evolve. So if you're saying, well, I wrote Visual Basic code. Oh, cool. I'm happy for you. I've done this or I've done that. And if you don't evolve with the process, you're going to be left out. You're going to be one of the unemployed or this out of the pocket. Now, myself, I'm focusing on creating AI as a friend, it's a companion. I actually named it because I don't know with the open AI, it remembers. Now, Copilot Web doesn't remember what you talk about. If you just go on the Copilot, the regular one, you can tell it something, and tomorrow it doesn't know what you told it. You go on ChatGPT. I am now a year into talking with ChatGPT, and it remembers everything I say. It's becoming Jarvis from Iron Man, but not, because it makes so many mistakes. It's ridiculous. But anyway, getting back to it. So finishing up with that, it's not ready for real time as far as replacing a software developer, but our roles are going to evolve. So now what we're going to be doing is, like I mentioned about the AI agents, we're going to start monitoring and coming up with ways of validating. So when we get results that are critical to infrastructure, water, fuel, gas, something energy, then we're going to have to make sure that that decision is correct so we don't open the floodgates and do something bad. And that's why we're still going to need software developers, but they're probably going to be more QA or ingenious type of QA type of analysis in order to be able to validate the results at least for a couple years. And then the other thing is the hype. what is coming out is, and quickly, especially with the deep fake out of China, which is kind of immediately started getting into it. It was discovered it wasn't that simple. They were using all the LLMs, and there was a lot of conjecture there. But the main thing is that as it evolves, it's going to get, ASI will be here in a few years, as in artificial superintelligence. And forget about generative in general. I'm talking about it's going to get so amazing. But the problem is that without somebody to check it, there's got to be checks and balances, and that's where software developers, if you study, if you keep on moving forward, will continue to be employed. Except that will be a thinner group. Thank you.
Yeah. Very well said. I agree with you and and Tom, the other Tom as well. I will say this though, the scare of will developers lose their jobs? I think I've been hearing that for the longest time because for the longest time we've seen how applications have evolved and how they become WYSIWYG, how they have automated code generators, Power Builder from back in the 90s that was dubbed as coming in from heaven above, where we don't need software developers. It's click and drag, and anybody can do it. And then same thing with Excel, where I have my data that all the business analysts are familiar with, and now you can build in VBA code in the back end. So why would you need a software developer? And then, of course, there's the infamous SharePoint, which allows organizations to do a lot of things right out of the box, collaboration, version control, and be able to share documents. And, okay, well, we won't need any developers because we already have what we need from SharePoint. Guess what? All those products that I mentioned did require developers because I have never seen any organization where they take a product and say, we want it just like that out of the box. We're not going to customize it. Every organization uses IT to their advantage and customizes it to fit in their own business purpose so that it's a better fit for them. They don't want to just be a one-size-fits-all. I want to recognize everyone's time, so I'm just going to touch on one last question. We can discuss this topic for hours, but I just wanted to share one last question before we adjourn, and that is, what is more dangerous, a knife or an apple? And obviously, this may seem like a very simple question, but realistically, what can cause damage, a knife or an apple, or both? Think of it this way. An apple seems very unassuming, very safe. There's nothing wrong with seeing a child eating an apple. There's everything wrong with seeing someone carrying a knife, right? Whether it's a child or an adult. But in reality, if an apple's poisoned, obviously that's bringing harm to whoever is consuming it. Likewise, if I didn't have a knife, how would I be able to prepare food for myself and for my family, right? I can't just bring an entire cow to the table and say, have at it, right? We need to be able to cut our food up in pieces and be able to make it more consumable. So either could be used for good or bad, which obviously ties into today's topic with AI, could be used for good or bad, depending on who's using it and depending on who's doing the Q&A check, so to speak, or being the guardian of that. So I've heard the phrase before that developers are guardians of data. We ensure that whatever the query coming from the user is adequate, that doesn't involve any vulnerable code or anything malicious before we submit it to the database. And likewise, when we get data from the database, we present it to the user and we hide anything that may be of a privacy concern. So we're guardians of the data, but likewise, I think now we're also guardians of the code as a whole and how it's generated. We can't just do cut and paste, but it is a co-pilot and not a pilot. So it is my assistant, as Tom Kelly mentioned, and it is a friend, but I can't let it take charge and be the lead. And so we're coming up on 2:00, so I wanted to share one last thing with you, end it on a humorous note. So I came across this meme that says, the biggest joke on mankind is that computers have started asking humans to prove they aren't a robot. I thought this was pretty interesting and wanted to share it with the group. And since we've already had a meaningful discussion, I'll skip on what we learned today. But I also wanted to share, if you're interested in having a proof of concept done or any additional training, NIS Technologies provides both consulting as well as training in AI and a lot of the Microsoft stack of technologies as well. If you need to get in touch with me, my links are all available through Linktree/Sam Nasser. And more specifically, if you have any questions, let's continue the dialogue. You can reach out to me. My email is snasser@nistechnologies.com. You can also find me again on Linktree. And most importantly, if we're not connected on LinkedIn, please let's do so. And so with that, thank you all for attending. It's been a great discussion, and we had a lot of great feedback. And thank you again for having me.
Go ahead and end the recording. Thanks, Sam.